Did you know that about 70% of people say they feel disconnected from others? This sense of isolation can be overwhelming. But what if I told you that the secret to forming deeper connections lies in embracing vulnerability? That's right. Sharing your true self can unlock a world of engagement and empathy. In fact, stories that reveal our vulnerabilities are often the most memorable. Research shows that emotional stories can increase information retention by 60%. When you tell a story that resonates emotionally, it sticks with people long after they've heard it. Imagine having the power to captivate your audience and make them feel understood, all by being real and open. In this video, we'll explore how vulnerability can transform your storytelling. You'll learn why it's vital to share your struggles and imperfections. We'll dive into strategies that turn your weaknesses into strengths and discover how these moments of honesty can create unforgettable connections. Get ready to break the mold and become a storyteller who isn't afraid to show their true self. The journey to becoming a great storyteller starts here, and trust me, you won't want to miss a moment of it. Chapter 1: Unmasking the Truth. Why vulnerability hooks audiences instantly. One of the biggest storytelling myths is that you need to present yourself as an expert, someone who's got it all figured out. In reality, that often distances you from your audience. People relate to real emotions and genuine experiences. When you reveal your true self, whether it's a moment of failure, doubt, or fear, it creates an instant connection. Take Brené Brown, a research professor who studies vulnerability. She says, vulnerability is not winning or losing, it's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Her TED Talk on vulnerability has over 60 million views, proof that people are drawn to authenticity. Why? Because it makes you human. When you show vulnerability, people see themselves in your story. It's like holding up a mirror to their own fears and struggles. And once they relate, they're hooked. A study by Princeton University found that when someone tells a personal story, brain activity between the speaker and listener syncs up. That's right, your audience's brain literally mirrors yours. And the deeper the emotional connection, the more synced you become. So, if you want your audience to stay with you, don't just tell them the highs. Share the lows too. Let them in on your fears, doubts, and mistakes. That's where the magic happens. Chapter 2: The Fear Factor, Turning Your Weaknesses into Storytelling Strengths. We've all been taught to hide our weaknesses. But in storytelling, weaknesses can be your greatest asset. The fear of looking foolish or imperfect often holds people back from being vulnerable. However, those very fears can become the heart of your narrative. Think about it, what's more compelling? A perfect hero who has everything under control, or a flawed character struggling to overcome their obstacles? Audiences root for underdogs because their vulnerabilities make them relatable. In Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, the hero's journey is built on struggle, setbacks, and ultimately, transformation. Without vulnerability, there is no growth. And without growth, there's no story. One powerful strategy is to reflect on moments where you've failed or felt inadequate. Author Malcolm Gladwell emphasizes how setbacks can actually fuel success. His book, David and Goliath, shows how disadvantages can be turned into strengths. In storytelling, your failures are not just bumps in the road, they are key moments that shape your narrative. Start by identifying your most significant fears or past failures. What did you learn from them? How did they shape who you are today? Share that. When you tell a story that reveals your struggle, you give your audience permission to embrace their own flaws. And when they do that, they'll see you as a guide, not someone to admire from afar, but someone who walks beside them. Chapter 3: Emotional Resonance, Crafting Stories that Tug at Heartstrings. One of the most effective ways to connect with your audience is by tapping into universal emotions. Whether it's love, loss, joy, or heartbreak, everyone can relate to these feelings. But here's where vulnerability plays a vital role. When you show your own emotional journey, you invite your audience to experience it with you. Neuroscience backs this up. A study conducted at USC found that emotional stories activate the same brain regions that respond to real-life experiences. In other words, when you tell an emotional story, your audience feels like they're living it too. This is the power of storytelling. They don't just hear your words, they feel them. But how do you create emotional resonance? The key is to be specific. Instead of saying, "I was sad," describe the moment that made you feel that way. Did your heart sink when you received bad news? Did you struggle to find the right words during an argument? Paint the scene vividly so your audience can picture it. The more specific you are, the more universal your story becomes. Best-selling author Brené Brown also highlights the importance of embracing vulnerability to create emotional impact. She says, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change." When you open up and share the raw emotions behind your story, you allow your audience to see the world through your eyes. This emotional exchange is what creates lasting impact. One technique you can use is to incorporate sensory details. What did you see, hear, smell, or touch during the moment of vulnerability? These small details bring your story to life and deepen the emotional connection with your audience. For instance, instead of saying, "I was anxious," you might say, "My hands were trembling, and I could feel the sweat rolling down my back." Remember, storytelling isn't about presenting yourself as perfect. It's about sharing your human experiences, the good, the bad, and the messy. And when you embrace that, your stories won't just be heard, they'll be felt. If you're finding these insights helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more tips on becoming a great storyteller. Chapter 4: Breaking the Perfection Myth, the Art of Imperfect Storytelling. Many storytellers feel the pressure to be perfect. They think every word needs to be polished, every moment flawless. But here's the truth: perfection is boring. The more perfect you try to be, the less relatable you become. In fact, embracing your imperfections is what makes your storytelling authentic. Let's look at this in action. J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, has openly discussed how her failures shaped her success. Before publishing her series, she faced numerous rejections from publishers. Yet, her vulnerability in sharing that struggle makes her story even more compelling. In her Harvard commencement speech, she said, "Failure meant a stripping away of the inessential." By owning her setbacks, she became someone we root for. Perfectionism can kill creativity. When you're too focused on getting everything right, you stop taking risks. And storytelling, at its core, is about taking risks. That's where vulnerability comes in. It allows you to share the messy, imperfect parts of your story, which are often the most interesting. One strategy to embrace imperfection is to allow space for mistakes and unexpected turns in your narrative. Instead of meticulously planning every detail, leave room for spontaneous moments. These moments often reveal something deeper about your story. A Stanford University study found that audiences actually trust speakers more when they make small mistakes, like stumbling over a word or laughing nervously. It humanizes you. The art of imperfect storytelling isn't about sloppiness. It's about showing the raw, unfiltered side of yourself. You don't need to have all the answers, and that's okay. People will appreciate your honesty more than they will your perfection. So, next time you tell a story, don't worry if it's not polished. Embrace the imperfections, they're what make your story real. Chapter 5: Invisible Armor, How Vulnerability Builds Resilience in Storytelling. Vulnerability in storytelling isn't just about connecting with your audience, it's also about building your own resilience. The more you open up and share, the stronger you become as a storyteller. It's like building invisible armor. Every time you reveal something personal, you learn to withstand the discomfort of being exposed. Why is this important? Because storytelling, especially vulnerable storytelling, isn't easy. It can feel uncomfortable or even scary. But here's where resilience comes in. Over time, the more you practice sharing your vulnerabilities, the less daunting it becomes. This idea is backed by research. A 2017 study from the American Psychological Association found that individuals who regularly practiced self-disclosure, sharing personal experiences, developed higher levels of emotional resilience. They became less fearful of judgment and criticism. When you make vulnerability a habit in your storytelling, you also build a thicker skin. One of the key strategies here is to start small. You don't need to dive straight into your deepest, most personal stories. Start by sharing minor vulnerabilities, maybe a story about a project that went wrong or an embarrassing moment. Gradually, as you become more comfortable, you can open up more. This slow build not only helps you get used to sharing but also shows your audience that you're human. Another approach is to view storytelling as a journey, not a destination. Every story you tell is part of your growth. The process of sharing your vulnerabilities helps you develop your voice, making you a stronger, more resilient storyteller. Over time, you'll find that vulnerability no longer feels like a risk, it feels empowering. If you enjoyed this content and want more insights into storytelling, make sure to subscribe. Join our community and unlock the art of powerful storytelling today.